Alright, let's dive into this Hell Not in the Sun remix. Okay, fun intro. What an emotional piece. So cheerful. Like you would cry on it. Hello everyone, and welcome to the project breakdown of Hell Not in the Sun remix. So I want to give you a bit of backstory in the production of Headliners in the Sun remix. Idra once shared a new song of Honkai Star Rail that we could make a remix. And he said we could make a remix out of it, and I agreed. Then we somehow decided to make an emotional melodic dubstep with some inspiring elements like sparkle and anything such on it. So without further ado, let's get into the project. Alright, so this is the project of Headliners in the Sun remix. First off, Ichiro sent me stems such as piano, FX, strings, synths, and also drums and beats, in which I don't really use it in the project. Let's start from the beginning. We have this like string and some sound effects. This crazy wind and bird flapping wing, in which I got from YouTube, are to give some battery atmosphere so that you can hear some ambience of wings flapping together with the wind. And to make it more emotional, we also had this very high big pad effect, in which this one came from me stemming a pad effect from my remix of If I Can Stop One Heart From Breaking. And together, they create a very beautiful intro. Alright, this is the part where the vocal goes in, and to mix the vocals I use a certain setting from my previous remix of If I Can Stop One Heart From Breaking. We have OTT, EQ, de-essing, delay, and also vintage verb, and also crystallizer to make some crystallizing beautiful vocals. And then we have the piano arpeggio, which is a remodel of Kimi no Nawa's Sparkle melody. This is to give you a hint that you're gonna listen again to the melodies of Sparkle in the ending. I was motivated to use this melody because one, we have Sparkle in Honkai Star Rail. Two, some scenes from Pharaoh Panaconi have a bit of similarity with Kimi no Nawa. And three, we wanna embrace a happy ending after embarking an adventure on Panaconi. And then we have some melodic textures such as this one here from Kashmir. And a certain sample from Collab Volume 3. And since they are pretty loud enough, I decided to make an automation. And also the mixing is not really that complicated. We have EQ, super massive, and then OTT. Then we have a convolver, which is simply a reverb itself. And then we EQ it again to balance the frequencies of melodic textures. And then we have this sweet resub, in which the mixing is simply monoize the entire wrist, and then we add some distortion, compression, and EQ with low pass as such. And also not to mention we have some transitions like this one here. Now entering the second of 36, we have this little cello just to add a little bit of emphasis in the piece. It's from BBC Symphony Orchestra, and despite you don't clearly hear it, this was enough to give an emphasis to the second half. And also, we have some melodic samples from chime here. It is to give a very nice melodic hike and just to make you feel some goosebumps when reaching another section. And also the synth note from Virtual Ride, which is good enough as an atmospheric addition. Not to mention we have this texturized pad from luring the vocals of Had I Not Seen the Sun. Using the presets from what I did for melodic textures into a soothing pad like previous project before. Alright, entering the bridge we have this automation to minimize the over-reverbing effect. Because we don't really wanna have too much noise on the bridge part. And also we have this one just to make some nice transition. It's a reverse step from Kashmir, and sometimes steps can be good as a reverser to give an emphasis to the next part. Watching stars as we drift on by, a touch, a glance, fly away. Now entering the build-up, we have the piano chord, which also helps the piano stem here, so that I can give an even more emphasis in the piano, as if it is combined. These piano chords here are to strengthen the atmosphere in entering the build-up, and then we have sparkle arps and this Mod 7 arp, which is basically an arp from Mod 7 in my sightseeing project. And then we reused some melodic textures. Now with an additional of strings. It's basically a setting of strings in Eddie roll, and with the mixing of which I say it's similar to the mix I used when I was creating another Robin remix before. And then we have bass strings, which is a combination of cello and contrabass. And these strings here are also from Eddie Roll, with the mixing of something like this. Simply using OTT Wave Shaper and EQ to make bass strings even clearer. And then we have some effects like this. Timbre transition and orchestral drums. Speaking of the build-up, we decided to add the orchestral drum here from Kashmir, in which these drums here are somehow easily mixed just with a compression, gain, and EQ. And then we have some build-up elements from these risers. And then the snare build-up. And then with some settings like this, we have endless smile, a balance to reduce the volume, so that when the drop hits, we can have a very big effect. And then we have this one here, which this one here is a pad, but can also be used as a reverser. It is to create the jumping effect so that when it reaches the drop, you will feel surprised, big, and uplifted. And then we have the reverse vocal here. And also the pre-drop up here. And then we have the sub drop and the crystal impact from one of my rocket remixes. And also, not to forget about this tom fill here. And the snare. The tom can be played to create a nice transition. And altogether it sounds like this. And this transition here creates a great transition to a very big drop, in which we're gonna explain soon. Now, let's start from the top. We have this lead from Nexus and Inspire, in which those leads are square leads. And in this lead here, we have this legato of 1/8, and then Inspire, in which I enable the glide. I don't really know the actual glide function in Inspire, but I somehow managed to figure out how to create a single note Inspire. And it creates a very big atmosphere to add the melodic dubstep, which is only chords and bass and such, to create a bigger atmosphere. And the mixing is, the listeners are pan left and right respectfully, and then EQ it. And then in the mixing we have a TT, gain, EQ, a little distortion, and then just to take on some wide frequencies. And then we have dynamics, and finally EQ to cut out the low end. And also this vintage verb to create a great fake out in the ending. And then we have chords, which is basically chords from my Robin remix as well, from this one here, then this one here, and a white noise. In the piano roll, it plays literally the same except the white noise, which plays one note only. And then we mix it like this. We have this EQ and then a simple mixing before we get into a complicated mixing in this chords bus to glue them together. We have a TT Supermassive Saturn, which we create 5 separations, and we put a lot in the middle here. And then we have Fresh Air, EQ, a vintage verb to create a fake out outro, and then balance to reduce the volume in the second drop to keep a space for the vocals. And then we have this bass and sub bass, which is a combination of this one here. So I usually put in sub bass first and bass. In some cases though, previously I didn't really think too much about either putting sub bass first and then bass, or bass first or sub bass first, but then I started to understand what I needed to do here. And then the mixing is that we monoize pretty much everything. The sub bass to 100%, and this one here, let's say 50% in the bass. And the mixing, we have blood overdrive, and then distortion plus wave shaper to fatten the bass itself. And let's hear them separately. Let's see if we deactivate this one here. It makes such great difference, right? And then we have this 8-bit up to accompany the chords. This may sound a bit annoying, but they are good enough as a complement to add a lot of vibes in the drop. And then we have this 8-bit up 2, which is literally a chord chart with some setting like this, with the pitch envelope being activated. And this pitch envelope is activated to give an attack to the 8-bit up itself. And then we have staccato, which is a staccato string. And since the production of this remix, I like to add some strings such as drop strings or staccato to give a lot of atmosphere in the drop itself, despite not really hearing it much. And then we have violins here, which we call it drop strings. The strings are mainly from sonatina. This one is from sonatina, this one is from flex, and this one here is from flex as well. And for the mixing, we use OTT wave shaper, EQ, compression, fresh air to add some high, then supermassive for the reverb, and then we EQ it. And then we have a bounce which might be useful to reduce the volume on the second drop. And then we have some very high crystallized pad to give some high gain. Both of them are not mixed, but they are mixed in the bus, which is cutting the low end, and then we make it very wide, very stereoized. So it's 100 and this one's 70%. And this one here also has the automation to keep, and they work well to keep a space in the resting part. And now let's get into the sound design. We have this one here, the additive melodies, which can be good to fill in some melodies when the bass itself is, so it doesn't really feel too monotonous. And also we have some effects which are resampled from my previous rapid remixes. And then we have this basery jam, which is a bass I created from Vital. And this one here comes from this one that moves a lot. And then we have a trance kit which is gonna be used in the second half stuff. And then we have a sub drop which gives an even bigger effect if you are listening with headphones or earphones. So altogether should sound like this. The space fillers come from many samples, such as this one is from Chime, Melodic, Rhythm Volume 2. This one's from Shark's Color Base from Cybele, and then this one is from Skybrick. And if you mess up with samples, how I somehow did here, you will be able to somehow find a perfect moment to get the sound design what you desire. And for this one, we also have these additions such as this up down here, which I sampled from this one here just to save some time and just to make it way simpler. And then we have this little piano fill, is from 2 pianos in Emerald preset. And for the drums, it sounds very simple. This one here is from Chime, and then this one is from Modus, and some tops from Kashmir, pretty much everything else, with some sound effects from Kashmir such as Jungle from the keys, and then this one. They're good enough to add into the body of the snare. And for the top, we have the hi-hat, which is basically from the FPC here. They do sound small, but they are good enough to add some rhythm for the cymbals. And for the sidechain, I use a fruity balance, and since I'm getting used to making a dubstep, I decided to make a very simple sidechaining by creating a right dog for the sidechain so that sidechaining can become even easier. And if we play it together, it should sound like this. Since this one is very CPU consuming, I decided to skip a bit. Now, Before we enter into the second half, I want to share a little trick about making an emotional melodic dubstep. So I wanted to create an emotional melodic dubstep that almost even maybe cry by imagining a lead which I wanna come up with, and then I implemented it like this. But then I also have to find the best lead that can make scene even emotional, in which I found out square leads are great enough to make emotional movements. Noticing the slides like that, be able to create an emotional vibe. And then the next thing is about the chord progression, in which you have to be a bit creative in making a pattern like that so that the chord progression doesn't sound boring, especially in the approaching the ending section of the first drop, which we play in the chords of F minor and such, in which we play the chord of the F minor, like this one here. I have been playing a lot of improving chords since the beginning of my music production, and I have never been tired of creating wonderful chords like this because I really love making chord improvements. Yeah, that's pretty much what I wanna tell about the tips of making an emotional melodic dubstep. Now on the second half, we have some stems from Ichiro, such as piano. This stem here is from the intro as well, and then we have a violin as an addition. And then we also use strings from this one here as an addition. Then we have some piano arps from the intro as well, and some other ambiences. And also with calm strings, which can be very useful for some slow ambiences. And if we don't play the calm strings here, it kind of felt a bit empty, so we decided to add some calm strings. And this one here is from Flex, all strings low. Is the vocal chop I did in vocal chopping the acapella, since I really love that. And if we don't use any effects, it will sound like this. Since this sample is dry, we decided to add some EQ supermassive to give some reverb, and vintage verb to give an even spacious reverb, and then finally an EQ with a little height and boost. Now, into this very grand orchestral section, this orchestral section here is actually inspired by the universal theme. So I decided to create a sketch of chords with something like this. And then I implemented a melody from with the horns, like this one here. This uses some presets from Edinburgh as in here. And then we have some string, a so-called orchestral build. And then bass string as usual, and brasses, which is also from Edinburgh. They are trombones and tubas.
And then we have a sweet breeze to amplify the sub, so it should sound like this. And then we have some higher violins to accompany the place of the horns and trumpets. You will notice the higher violins playing after some parts from the horns and trumpets. So it should sound like this. And also we got a choir here. Unfortunately, for some reason, the choir won't play. But this choir rising here is giving a lot of emphasis in going to the climax of this second drop here. And then we have drums. And this one here, we don't only use one loop of orchestral, we also use some orchestral patterns here. This is what I did before I got introduced to FPC, where you can play a lot of drums in a pattern. And also with some orchestral drums from Ultrasonic, which amplifies strength to its body, so that the orchestral section sounds even more full. Now, speaking of the second drop, this second drop is exactly almost the same, but this drop violins here are used for the strings here, or some orchestral parts to continue what just played in the orchestral part. It is to give a lot of emotions from the first drop and works as a climax to enjoy the ending of Pentaconi, so that you will see a joyful ending after many times of discovering mysteries in Pentaconi. And then the drum pattern here, I decided to make it half time from the first drop because I feel like keeping the rhythm one sound really good. So we decided to make drum patterns like this. And with everything, it should sound like this. Like usual, the drop section takes a lot of CPU. Finally, the choir is playing its volume. This choir is good as an emphasis here. I honestly wish I could write an orchestral song even better, since I only have a limited orchestral library. I'm planning to get Metropolis Arc 1 for better orchestral writing experience, but time will tell that I will get it soon. To end this remix, I decided to reuse again the melody of Sparkle, which during the creation I am so heavily inspired by Radwimps. As stated in the description, I loved Sparkle that I wanted to implement its melody on this remix, and also we got Sparkle in Star Rail, right? Well, that is pretty much what I can explain in this project, and I hope you enjoy the project breakdown of this remix, and I'll see you on another videos to come.